Well, you can do all those things and so much more. Just grab a seat in the chair or the floor. Sit back, relax, recline. Well, she drops another casual line. You're tuned into Casually Molly with Molly and Bergie.
Welcome back to the Casually Molly podcast. I am your host, Molly Ambergy. For our first-time listeners, we are based here in St. Louis, Missouri. We interview comedians, artists, entertainers, and I am very happy to reintroduce. He is a well-known comedian all the way from New York City. You probably saw him on YouTube or listened to him on our podcast a couple of months ago. And what a treat. We have him back on the podcast. Give it up for Myqs Kaplan, everybody. Yes.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me, Molly Ambergy. I love that your theme song reminds and teaches people how to pronounce your name so that there's no anxiety over it. I can just throw it out. Unless I didn't do it right, but it seemed very, I think I like that. It's nice when it's sort of the same way. Like last night I was at a show and there was a few comedians hanging out beforehand and I knew most of them, but one woman was like, Myqs, it's been so long since I've seen you. And I was like, oh, yes, of course. It has been a very long time, person who I wasn't sure that I knew at all. And then through the course of conversation, I was able to be like, hey, other comedian, do you know this person? Do you know these folks? I'm like, oh no. And then introductions got made and everybody said their names and now I know everybody's name. I guess yes. What I'm saying is I like to know people's names. I like to know how to pronounce their names. And those are two of the things that I like.
Oh, that's a great thing to like. And I mean, I guess like I didn't write the theme song. Shout out to my friend Darius Varner for doing so. I'm going to let him know that you said this. In fact, he'll probably listen to it and he's going to be like, wow, I didn't even think of it that way. Or maybe that was his whole plan the whole time, Myqs. So we don't know, but that's great. I was about to say, speaking of being approached by people, you were just performing the last time you were on the Casually Molly podcast. You performed at the Gaslight Theater. Great audience turnout. Everybody that I was sitting next to was having the best time ever. And you were approached by a lot of fans. Did you feel super welcomed being in our city of St. Louis, Missouri?
I really did. I mean, Gail Hollander, who put together that show, is a kind man, and I think he might have been also the person who suggested I come on your show. So, like, yes. A big, mutually appreciation. Mutual? Oh no, I ruined it. Anyway, I mutually appreciate everyone, all myself, just me. I'm the one who mutually appreciates all. And yeah, so he put together, like he booked the theater and brought me there, and we all worked together. Him, me, and you, and no one else to get people there. And it was a pleasure. That was the, I think, third night of like a 15 show tour I was doing. And it started strong on the first night, and by the third night it was even stronger. And I don't want to talk about how much stronger it got by the end, because what you saw was good.
Yes, it was.
But
yes,
I'm also excited to return. And if people who did come out to see me in July in St. Louis, I will do some different things probably. But if you didn't come in July, don't worry, I'll do exactly the same thing. But it was, I mean, the theater was, what a beautiful theater. And the other comedians were nice. And yeah, the audience was really just warm and welcoming. So I don't know if it's like a scientific sampling of St. Louis, but if I had to base my feelings of St. Louis on only that night, I love it.
Good. I was, like I said, I had so many people that came up to me just because I was just like, oh, hey, Myqs. And like, I was like, thanks for coming on. It's nice to finally meet you in person. And people were like, how do you know him? Like, I was like, oh, he's been on my, you should listen to the Casually Molly podcast interview. And then there were some people that watched our interview and they were like, oh, he was like so down to earth. He was so humble. And I was like, oh, good. I'm really happy that you all said that. So you got a lot of great feedback. But we are talking about too, you are coming to Helium next Sunday from now. Are you super pumped? Have you been to Helium before? Like, tell us what we should know about the upcoming show, other than maybe you're doing the same material, maybe some new stuff.
Thank you for asking. So I have never been to the St. Louis Helium. I have been to various other Heliums around the country, I believe, certainly Portland and Philly, and they're some of my favorite places to perform. The Helium folks do a good job. I also love Helium and the way that it, makes our voices feel very high. Obviously, that will be a component of the show, that I will be at Helium. All the comedians do breathe helium out of a balloon and then do their entire set with a voice that is fun. But yeah, so I've never been to the St. Louis Helium. Love all the other Heliums, and sincerely, I'm the hour that I've been, that I'm working on, that I'm sort of touring around and polishing, that I did bring to the Gaslight Theater. I'm most likely, I'm still continuing. It still continues to evolve, and also though, I sometimes, like, if a crowd was like, we all saw it, we were here, then I'm like, well, then maybe there'll be some, like, there are other jokes as well. So don't worry if you came at a joke that I tell sometimes is like at the end of my show, if I'm selling CDs afterwards, I'll say, that usually the CDs, the albums, are all full of completely different shows, completely distinct from the show that you just saw. So if you enjoyed what I did tonight, you can get a totally different show on my albums. And if you did not enjoy what I did tonight, you can get a totally different show on my album. So it's perfect for everyone. So if you enjoyed last time, show up again. And if you didn't show up last time, well, then you have another chance. You have another chance to show up. I'm willing to give people another chance to come out to the show in St. Louis at Helium this Sunday, out of the warmth, the goodness of my heart. I have some goodness in my heart, and I'm gonna allot some of it to the good people of St. Louis, who might have, look, who knows what was going on that Friday night. Like, maybe you're just like, oh no, I can't get out on a Friday night. I'm an observant Jew, or whatever, or I had a long day at work. But now this is Sunday night, and it's not even that. I think it's 7
It's a game changer. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And if you're like, but Sundays when I watch football, I'm like, well, how about this be a game changer? Have it be a football game changer. Just change that. I actually do like performing while football is happening, because that usually means, here's the thing. You can love football and you can love my comedy. And also, I think the Venn diagram overlap is small enough that people can enjoy, some people will enjoy football and some people will super enjoy my comedy. And here's the thing. My comedy will not give anyone concussions. As so far it hasn't. There is no research indicating that it will.
I've never felt safer. Yeah.
I appreciate it. Here's the only risk I think that my comedy offers is you may end up hurting your knee from slapping it so much. That might be a concern. But so if you have a delicate knee, try to just have like a table maybe between your slapping hand and your knee, and slap the table, and maybe it'll hurt your hand. Like, so. But maybe just switch up your hands, or, just try to maybe enjoy it internally as much as possible. But I know that these things may involuntarily happen. So just prepare, maybe bring gloves, if you think you might not be able to control the slapping of the table and or hand. So yeah, I guess that's what I would recommend, is just bring some gloves.
Yeah, maybe some knee pads. Okay, I gotcha.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. Absolutely. So for people that are watching or listening to the episode, when we do release this, I will include the ticket link as well as the ways of finding Myq Kaplan all over social media, and tickets to get the show for Helium on Sunday. Speaking though of performing, you had, like I mentioned earlier, you were on a tour the last time you were here. Is this show part of that tour, or is this like a new Imperfect Tour that we're embarking on?
Wonderful question. So just for people who don't know, the name of the hour that I'm in general working on is imperfect, which is why you, knowing that, Molly, asked me, and you know this, I don't have to tell you this, and
Right.
maybe your listeners know this as well, but if there's anyone out there who didn't know and just heard Molly saying, so is this just part of like a new Imperfect tour? So this tour is gonna be perfect. And Imperfect is, for if you're not looking at it, the way that I spell the name of the show is a lowercase I-M and a capital perfect. So maybe you'll only see the perfect part, but it's just like imperfect or imperfect. And it's unclear how you're supposed to say it or read it or write it, but those are your options. There's a lot of ways forward. It's a fascinating question that you ask, and I'm going to answer it in a very roundabout way. I hope that is acceptable. Are you familiar with the concept of the Theseus's ship?
No, but tell me more.
Okay.
I'm very intrigued now. Yes.
I'm excited to tell you. So are you familiar with Theseus of Greek mythology, who slew the Minotaur? That's like one of his top claims to fame for Theseus.
Yes.
There's while he was out to sea, apparently the myth goes that they needed to replace one of the planks of the ship, and so they replaced the plank, and they're like, "Oh, is it still the same ship?" Yeah, it's still Theseus's ship. It's just one plank is changed. And then while they're out to sea, they replace plank by plank the entire ship. So it was Theseus's ship, and then all the planks are replaced. And they're like, so none of the planks were part of the ship that left, but they're like, each step of the way, they're like, yeah, this is still Theseus's ship. So like, yeah, this is a completely different set of planks. And then they get back to shore, and if I understand correctly, or maybe there's different versions, or maybe I'm getting it wrong, but they take all the planks that were now no longer part of the ship, then reconstruct a ship out of them, and now it's the same planks that the original ship was. So which one is Theseus's ship? Is
Right.
it that? And so we can ask these sort of questions about our own lives, like with the fact that, all of our cells or skin cells or whatever it is after however many years, or even just the molecules and the atoms and the subatomic particles that make up who we are shifting in and out of, being us every moment, as I understand it from a physicist friend.
Okay.
And so it's like, what even is a self or a person or a ship or a comedian or a comedy tour? Is the answer to your question, is this the same tour? They say, I think this is maybe a Buddhist thing, like that somebody said, you can't ever step into the same river twice, because the water that you step in right now is now going to be like way further down river. So it's never going to be the exact same stream of water. It's not even a stream of water. It's a river of water. This is not even a stream of consciousness. This is a river of consciousness. And our bodies are all made of so much water. So we are bodies of water, like streams and rivers of consciousness. And so this is all to say, the answer is, in one way, there can never be the same tour again. In another way, it is still the touring of Imperfect, which up until I record this as a special and or album, every time I do Imperfect will be an iteration of the tour, of the Perfectly Imperfect Tour, the Casually Molly podcast, the Perfectly Imperfect Tour. And also, I will say, no, it is a different tour. This one is the Myqs Kaplan birthday weekend mini tour, which makes sense that we talked about Theseus, because he, of course, as I said, slew the mini tour. So I'm doing a mini tour of shows, which starts in Chicago Thursday, then Milwaukee Friday and Saturday, and culminating in this time, it's going to be the third city on the tour again, just like it was in July, but this time it will be the third and final place that I do this hour of comedy on this tour before we visit my girlfriend's family in Kansas City and then drive home. And who knows, maybe there'll be other shows as well. But right now, of the birthday weekend Myqs Kaplan mini tour, which you can see a fun graphic that a friend of mine, Mickey Cox, made on Instagram and such, with more information as well. But that I'm sure you'll provide all the information. But yes, the answer is yes and or no. It is the same and or different.
Which really blends into the theme, perfectly imperfect. I love that. So we don't really, is it a yes or is it a no? We're just present. We're here. We're making it happen. I'm so happy you brought up the mini birthday tour because I happened to see that post on Instagram that you were talking about. So that's what I wanted to lead into as well. Birthday tour, that's so exciting. How do you feel touring on such a, world-renowned national holiday that everybody's celebrating?
Thank you for asking, Molly. I
so
really
welcome.
appreciate it. It's
Yes.
like I could have written the questions myself. I didn't, but so yeah, somebody was saying to me, I was like letting some friends know, I don't know if everyone does this, probably they don't, but I sometimes in advance of my birthday, I will let people know that it is going to be my birthday. And excuse me.
I thought you were laughing
everyone.
and now you were coughing. So I was like laughing at you. I'm so sorry.
Well, thank you for
your birthday. Yeah.
Well, next time I laugh, I hope that you will cough at my laugh as you laughed at my cough.
Yeah.
And perfect. No, Molly, that time I was laughing, so you should have been coughing, but it's fine. I think we understand.
We got it. Yes.
So I was telling a friend that my birthday was coming up, and they said, I hope that your birthday is better this year than last year's, birthday during lockdown. And I appreciate that. And also it occurred to me, like what I did last year on my birthday is I didn't really go online. I think I might have posted something like, it's my birthday, give to a charity, do something for someone. Have a nice my birthday, and then usually most days of my life I'm online for some hours a day, but on that day I was like, let's take sort of a Sabbath-ish, a vacation from online. I think I went for a walk with my girlfriend. I did do an online show at night. I talked to on the phone a number of family and friends. We still weren't going many places, but I was in touch electronically with many. And so this year I'm excited to be in a city that I love, Chicago. The night before, a good friend of mine and I will have dinner, and then there'll be a show on it's nice. I feel like it's nice to do a show on the holiday of my birthday, if not only because it's an extra, like I'd love for people to come to all of my shows.
Right.
And if people are like, oh, wow, what's a special one? Well, my birthday only happens once a year. Right. And, I'm only in St. Louis at Helium once in my lifetime. And this combination of factors, these dates and times and molecules and planks of my... and here's the thing, even my last name, Kaplan, can be, if you take all the letters out of that and put them back, then they just spell a plank. So...
they do. Oh my God. That's amazing. Yes.
So, and folks, don't try this at home. None of it was planned, and that's okay. And I bet you believe it. Can you believe that all the letters in my name can be rearranged to other things? It's true. But yeah, I'm excited. Like, here's the thing. I do love like my girlfriend and I are going to be driving, and we really love traveling together. I feel like we love our home. And we also love being other places. And those are my two favorite places, is home and away. Like I was just thinking about this earlier today when a friend of mine was saying, like, I've got a project that will either develop into something or might end up being nothing, depending on the authorities that have, the
authorities
various,
that be.
no, the gatekeepers, but he was like, but either way will be fine, whether it's a thing or whether it's not a thing. I was like, that's my two of my favorite things are something and nothing. And like, imagine here, I'll present to you brief scenes. And if you don't mind, like playing along, I've written a part for you. Your
Absolutely.
part in the first of two scenes will be, I'll ask you a question and then you'll say something. And then in the second scene, you'll say nothing. Okay.
Okay.
So, Molly, what have you got planned for tomorrow?
Something.
Oh yeah, that's great. Something is wonderful. And now, okay, second, that's scene one. Scene two. Molly, what do you have planned for tomorrow?
Nothing.
Isn't that great? Wow, nothing. Just, isn't it wonderful to have nothing? It feels wonderful to have something planned, and it feels wonderful to have nothing planned.
Exactly.
And so this is all to say that even if it weren't my birthday, the tour would be fun. It would be, I mean, it would just be named a different thing. The fun that my girlfriend and I will have singing in the car, listening to music, listening to a new podcast we're listening to about cults or not cults, or whether things might be a cult. I believe it's called Sounds Like a Cult. And whatever, yeah, the people that we talk to will have the experience. And also, then bonus, I'm aging, which I'm doing all the time anyway. Like, it's so, birthdays are kind of weird because we're like, oh, now's the day that you're older. Like, right, it's just like same, older, like duck. Look, it's all geese, you know, it's just geese all the time. It's just like a wild goose. You're just not even chasing. You're just like, we're just all, it's like a silly goose chase.
Yes.
That's what my life is like.
Oh, I feel the same. I feel the same way about birthdays. Like, you know, this year too, like I went out and saw some friends, and like 2020 was kind of the same thing. It was like kind of chill, like nothing too crazy, but it's a weird thing. Like I will look at it and be like, it's cool to celebrate my life, but also I'm like, oh, I'm aging. This is, you know, right? Like I'm like, oh, it's like a weird thing to ponder. I feel like when you're younger, it's so exciting because you're like, oh, this is amazing. And then now I'm like,
oh yeah. Well, here's a couple things for you about that.
Yes.
I remember now, I don't know if this is a thing that my grandmother made up or a famous quote from a wise person that I'm either conflating with my grandmother, because I think she was also a wise person, or if she heard somebody else say it and she said it. But like the fact she died last year at 91, which is, you know, that's a good age. You know, like when people always have kids and they're like, oh man, like 6, what a cute age. I'm like, 91, what a good age to die. You know, if you're gonna die at an age, like 91's a good one. And but while she was alive, I'm 42 now, so for the 41-ish years that we were alive at the same time, she would sometimes, you know, as she was getting older, she would sometimes I'd say she would not complain more than she did complain. In fact, wow, I never thought about this in this way before. In fact, I'm reaching into my pocket to see if my digital recorder is there, because I want to record this for myself as well as to be on the podcast. But my grandmother, like the classic thing that she would say when I asked, how are you? She would say, well, I woke up this morning and nothing new hurt, so I'm good. And then, like, beautiful, you know, like she's like, some things hurt, but nothing new. But then towards the end, the last couple months of her life, when she was in more pain, when she was, I feel like she knew, sometimes I would ask her, how are you? And she would say, well, I woke up this morning. And that's all she would say. And perhaps something new did hurt. But it's funny because it reminds me of a joke of mine about getting a haircut. Where here's a brief joke for you. Sorry to do comedy on your show where I'm promoting my comedy show, but I would say this is a real experience that happened. Is a friend of mine, when I got a haircut, he said, my hair had been much longer, and he said, hey, I really like your hair short. And I said, oh, thank you so much. That's really nice of you to say. And then he goes on and says, I did not like it long. I was like, oh, okay. And so then I said to him, I really liked your compliment short.
Oh, I love that. Yes.
And that's all I said, because I live by example. And so my grandmother could have said, like, she's like, I like it when nothing new hurts, but today something new hurt. But her new way of doing it was just to say, well, I woke up this morning. And so that's not even the thing that I was initially thinking of sharing, which is this, that as she was aging, I feel like she would sometimes maybe like swing this pendulum of being like, oh, like getting older, you know, sometimes there's challenges that come along with it. She's like, but beats the alternative. Like, so as long as we are aging, that means that we are alive. I think I'm going to stop aging when I die. Like my grandmother now is not 92. She's still 91. She's like clocked in, like high score set, and that's it.
Yes.
You know, she's maybe she's starting over. Maybe she's 0. Maybe she's 1. I don't know, but she's probably not 92.
I love that. No, that, and I think we actually got philosophical too on the last episode when we were trying to promote comedy. But I love that that is like something to talk about, because sometimes from these like philosophical moments and, you know, even just like in-depth things like mythology and whatnot, a lot of comedy came out of that, like the joke that you talked about your haircut. So it all comes around full circle. So I really appreciate going on that journey with you. See, I knew this was going to happen. Another journey, another great episode. I'm so excited. Oh, this was going to ask you. Speaking of journeys, the last time you were on here, we obviously mentioned earlier about the Imperfect and Perfect, you know, tour and the meaning behind that. But there was another story that you touched on about getting a coffee table. Have we gotten the coffee table? If anybody is just tuning into it, Mike, you can kind of explain the background of the coffee table and maybe an update on what happened with that.
Happy to share. Thank you so much, Molly, for asking about the coffee table, which was one of the central characters of the last tour, which was at least in part named or nicknamed the Coffee Table Tour, perhaps short for the Mike and Rini drive and pick up a coffee table that used to belong to her beloved grandmother, who died a few years ago, and we miss her terribly. And but she owned this coffee table, and other people in the family have not expressed as much desire for the coffee table as Rini did, Rini, my girlfriend. So we drove. Yeah, so that was like the full name of the tour. But we did, and in part, it's one of the reasons that we drove, which I normally, like, so my girlfriend's aunt lives in the Minneapolis area, and she is the one who had the coffee table that belonged to mummi, which is the Finnish word for grandmother, which is what Rini called her grandmother because she was Finnish. And perhaps she still is Finnish. Maybe she's not finished being Finnish, but
right.
she had this beautiful coffee table made out of like a part of a tree. You know how they do that sometimes? They're like, just like, oh, I think part of this tree would be good to put tea on. And so she had it. And we booked the shows. I would normally fly to Minneapolis to do shows, but we decided, for many reasons, we're like, wow, it'll be great to not have to go to airports if we don't want to just be traveling in our car, to be able to go at our own leisure on our own schedule. And so, yes, so I talked to you in advance of the tour. I came to St. Louis in advance of getting to Minneapolis. We eventually I performed at Acme in Minneapolis, and on the way there, we stopped at Rini's Aunt Annette's home. We got the coffee table. It fit perfectly in the back seat of our car. Nobody stole it, as we did not hide it very well. But it was, if they did, we would have been like, please, it's a family heirloom of a table. We would, and I'm sure that people, maybe people sensed that. They were like, this seems like an important coffee table.
Sure.
And now we made it home, and the coffee table resides in our living room right near a new chair that we got after that as well. So now, we previously only had one chair in our living room and a couch, but now there is a chair for me, a chair for Rini, a couch for anyone who wants to sit on a couch. Okay. And also we're allowed to sit in each other's chairs. But I did at one point got real excited about her new chair and like jumped up onto it with my feet like a dog. And that's you know how, I don't know if this is the case in all male female relationships, but I am like a dog, like just bounding all over the place, being like, look at this chair, isn't this so exciting? You got your chair here. And Rini is like a cat, being like, I'm glad that you like the chair. And also, down off the chair, down. Rini just poked her head into the room, and I was just transmitting her act out, because that was her experience. Yes, the answer. Thank you for remembering. Thank you for following up. Thank you for asking. Let me, if I may, I love being on your show. I love being on podcasts. I like being anywhere that people want me to be and invite me to speak.
Yes, you're
And
always welcome. So
I
anytime.
really appreciate it. I'll be here every week.
Done.
The What's the opposite of casually? The formally Mike. The formerly casually Molly, formerly currently Mike show podcast. And the very specific compliment that I would like to give you about your show is like one of my favorite ways to do comedy is like to show up with a plan, with jokes that I'm preparing to tell, with
Right.
topics that I plan to address, and then I optimally sometimes in the moment I might say things that I didn't even know I was going to, that I hadn't planned. New jokes arrive, new things get riffed, new experimentation happens when an audience is open to that. It's sometimes I end up not saying anything that I planned to say. And so I feel like a similar like structure is in place where I can say as much as I want about whatever I want. I could tell jokes that exist. I could tell stories that I've told before. I could answer questions that you're asking in ways that I couldn't have imagined. But the point is that you're here with like the skeleton of like, no matter what happens, you're like, oh, also I do have a question from last time, like that you've clearly prepared. And it feels, I feel very well supported and taken care of. Like there's no way that this could go wrong.
Exactly. See, and that I really, first of all, that was so kind. I really appreciate that. Thank you. And that's exactly what I want people to feel like when they're listening to it. And even when they're a guest like you, is that in life, right? I mean, again, getting a little like on that philosophical journey here. I am a planner, but I have also had to learn that not everything goes according to plan sometimes. And so that's why I think you and I get along, because I'm like perfectly imperfect, just be casual, just roll with the punches. And then what's cool is that sometimes you learn things like I had no idea about your grandmother having like these really interesting, amazing thoughts. And we got to catch up about, getting the coffee table. And I didn't realize it was like a family heirloom of a sense. Like I thought maybe like, her family member owned it, but I didn't realize the sentimental value. And so that's the best thing, swirling it back to comedy. That's always the best way to learn about people. It's like, through their material and being on stage, which like I said, you're traveling, you're doing all this exciting stuff. What should people know moving forward about your comedy? I know you had mentioned you're kind of recording a special and everything coming up, but for people who are first listening to this podcast that didn't hear your interview the first time around, what would be like a good way to describe your comedy style?
Oh, sure. I appreciate it. I think that I'll answer in at least three different, at least two, at least one way. I think there's going to be several. I don't want to make promises I can't keep. But number one, my comedy style is kind of like this podcast, but if Molly weren't asking questions and there were more punchlines planned. So that's one way. Number two is somebody said to me recently that, they say about jazz that it's all about the notes that you don't play. They said to me, Mike, your comedy's like the opposite of jazz. It's more about the pauses that you don't take. And so that's one way. Another is, I would say, instead of me telling you about my comedy, I would recommend why not listen to an album or watch a clip. The most recent one that came out, I put out an album last year called AKA, and it was originally going to be called, I don't know if I told you this, All Killing Aside, because it's about love and compassion and not murdering. So we're taking all killing and putting it aside. But because it was coming out towards the beginning of the lockdown in this pandemic that offered so many uncertainties with where life was going to potentially take people medically, financially, physically, emotionally, spiritually, we're like, maybe let's not have killing in the title if we don't want to like the material's all the same, the album's the exact same thing, but instead we called it AKA, which is an abbreviation for All Killing Aside. It's also an abbreviation for also known as, so AKA became the AKA, the also known as. It's like All Killing Aside, AKA, if you will. And so when I talk about this, sometimes it feels a little bit like a TED Talk or like an Ask Me Anything on Reddit. And also my initials are MAK. So this is sort of an AKA MAK AMA about the album that came out last year on the 8th of May. Hope you're feeling A-okay about all that today. And so sometimes my comedy is like about rhyming, but that album, a friend also, after listening to it, they said a nice thing. They said it's like hilarious and layered, and which I call hilarious. So that's what I would say, that my comedy is hilarious, with layers layered right into the hilarity. But definitely check out that album if you haven't. And then also any number of my albums. But that one I feel is like, the most representative of who I am now and what I'm doing now. Yeah, I guess my comedy is, it's fun. It's fun, and it's me. And so, yeah, if you're listening to this and you're still listening to this, which you probably are, because I think is anybody here not still listening to this or watching this? You gotta be. I think anyone listening is probably listening. And so it's my comedy is just like this sentence, but with different words in it.
Exactly. And I'm so happy you talked about AKA, because I think we only touched a little bit on it the last time. And we talked more about like Comedy Central and getting to Amazon. And I remember thinking, I was like, oh, I wanted to talk to him more about that. So see, you already knew, already in sync, on the same page. And I love that it all, like, alliteration wise. And that's something I'll bring up too, because I'm pulling up your information for the show. But you do have a lot of like good alliteration and rhyming when it comes to it. I hope this is a compliment to you, but it kind of reminds me like Lin-Manuel Miranda when he's writing a song or writing a piece. I kind of feel like that's watching you do comedy. And I mean that as a compliment. I know it's like a musical and maybe a different genre, but I feel like, you only have, thank you. I was just given time, and I really appreciate all our team here. Shout out to Myqs Media. But I really love that, why I bring this up is that I'm trying to phrase this the way that I want to, is that I don't feel like anybody else does the comedy you do except for you. Do you ever get that sometimes from other people, that you're just kind of like a Mike Kaplan brand all on your own?
First of all, thank you for asking. That is very kind of you to say. I accept your intention and the consequence of your intention. I like that you're concerned in a positive way, Molly, that I could take it the wrong way, where you're like, this one guy who is so acclaimed in his field, a Tony Award winning, probably Grammy Award winning, like almost all the awards winning, like nearly like universally beloved a figure in American pop culture, maybe an internationally known culture today in the world. You remind me of this guy as if I could be like, Lin-Manuel Miranda, he's not a comedian, so what are you talking about? Be like, Mike, I don't know if you've heard of Albert Einstein, and I know he was more of a physicist and a scientist and a thinker than a comedian or an artist per se, but I do feel like your eyebrows are similar. Like, I hope that... So, I mean, I can't speak to everyone else's experience, but I'm glad that you experience my work the way that you do. It feels like that's sort of, I think the goal for most comedians or most artists would be to like be themselves uniquely in a way that, sure. Like, some of my favorites, like, nobody does comedy like Maria Bamford does. Nobody does comedy like Aparna Nancherla does. Nobody does comedy like Tig, or like John Oliver, or like Chappelle, or like Wendy Liebman, or, like there's obviously genres, like, within comedy, within music, within everything. Are there genres within everything? Yeah, I'll say it. I tell it like it is, or I tell it like it might be. I tell it like it might be is my new.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm gonna say it. This is how it is. I tell it like it might be, but also it might not be. So sometimes I tell it like it isn't, and that's fiction. So oh yeah, like Charles Dickens, he really told it like it wasn't. Um, I I can only, here's a way that I'll answer this question in another roundabout-ish this time, not even roundabout. But I remember thinking about this long ago, the idea that like jugglers can be very good at juggling without knowing anything about physics per se, like mathematically. Like you might ask a juggler, like, can you describe, the parabola? That like you don't have to know the word parabola or the definition in order to and I don't even know if that's the right word to use in this, but you don't have to know anything about parabolas to know to do juggling. And you could also be a physicist and be able to describe exactly what's going on with a juggler's intricate act. And the physicist doesn't necessarily, even though they know how to describe it all mathematically, they might not be able to juggle. So to know it is not to do it. And so to answer your question about what I do, I guess I would say, like the Dalai Lama once said, I don't mean to compare myself to the Dalai Lama, but in this case, I think I am similar to the Dalai Lama, where he said one time in answer to a question, I don't know what the question was, but he said something like, it's simple. The answer is simple. I don't know. So
yes. Yes.
I truly, I do my best to be myself and to, to share the things that I want to share, the things that I'm, moved or called or inspired, or the things that I think and see and feel and do. I'm doing things the best and only way that I know how to do things, and Lin-Manuel is doing things the best and only way that he knows how to do things, so I accept it. I am comedy's Lin-Manuel Miranda. You heard it. I didn't say it first. You heard it from Molly first. I'm just paraphrasing what she said to my own advantage, to my own overblown credit. Like Mike Kaplan, the Einstein of stand-up comedy. That one was, he gifted it to himself. Like Mike Kaplan, look, I know that Picasso famously, look, I could draw things that don't look like people too, and I do in my comedy. So yeah, that's thank you for asking your kind question. I hope I've answered it
Yes.
at all.
Yes. Well, and the only reason I was a theater major, I love, musicals, and, some are better than others, obviously, but I just always have looked up to Lin-Manuel Miranda, even before he got all these critically acclaimed, Tonys and whatnot. And sometimes I feel like when you talk about theater and comedy, some people, not everybody, because you're lovely and a professional, but sometimes you'll talk to people and people are like, why are you comparing me to theater? Like, and but that kind of thing. But I mean that in the highest regard to both you and Lin-Manuel Miranda. So you heard it here first on the Casually Molly podcast. So
if I may, I have
Yes.
one more thing to add and another thing. So perhaps two things. But
yeah, we still have some time. We're good.
Oh,
yeah.
okay. So on this subject, one, I'd like to do a brief scene. Like I'm not as accomplished an actor. I'm doing stand-up, and stand-up is performing. But here's now a brief scene of me. I'm performing as the character of a comedian who is offended to be compared to theater. What? Theater? Me? I tell the truth, and theater is full of lies. Okay, and that is a presentation. That's my. Hope it was good acting. Okay, the thing that I would like to add about music specifically is that I don't know if this came up on our first talk, but did you know, which you would know if I told you, that my parents were both music teachers?
Yes. Yes.
So I started playing the violin when I was 4, and so as such, music was like a language that I learned, kind of, along with the English language. It was like one of the first, experiences that I had and remember having, and still carry through to this day. I still make music. I still love music. And I do think that my comedy, and probably all comedians, I think that there is a musicality to, like, regardless of the fact, whether there is rhyme or whether the rhythm can be, meted out, on like a staff of like music paper or what have you, which it could be. In fact, my girlfriend went to Berklee College of Music. I don't know if that's the official specific name, but it was called Berkeley, and it's a college of music in Boston. And while she was there, I believe at one point, or at some point in her life, I know she had this experience where she got the sheet music for a Tom Waits song. And she had, I believe, not heard the song, but she started playing and singing the song as the sheet music was written, and got an interesting reaction because Tom Waits, if you listen to him, quote, sing the song, it's hardly singing. It's like his voice, he's doing a very specific thing, and there are notes that were codified in this sheet music, but to sing it, like what I'm doing now, like, you know, the way that they can do like auto-tune the news or whatever, like you can have every spoken tone, every word that we speak is a note, and there is rhythm to it, whether it can be, you know, like whether it like is a waltz, or whether it's in 4/4 time, or whether, you know, like, oh, this one's it's a 7/8, and then it's oh wow, it's a 5/4, this one's jazzy. I think that, I don't know, I can't say for sure, again, because I am me and I can't know me from the outside observationally as others could. But I do think that there's a way that, like, when I record an album, when I record a special, when jokes are completed, when jokes are done, and they go almost like the same way every time, like sort of the same way that, you know, like I saw Bob Dylan in 2004 at Boston University, and I recognized only about 3 of the songs. Like I'm not familiar with all of his catalog, but like when Blowin' in the Wind came on, I was like, I love this. I was like, wow, what a beautiful, like, new way to hear a song that I was familiar with. And so similarly, like when a joke gets done, like now I'm like Bob Dylan. I'm sort of like the Bob Dylan, Lin-Manuel Miranda, Einstein of comedy, Picasso as well. And
keep adding to the resume. I guess, yes.
yeah, I mean, yeah, it's always never done, never always. I'm like the Paddington of comedy as well. Paddington, the resume. So it says here that you're a bear. Okay, great. And you've just been a bear this whole time? Got it. Okay. Bear with me, folks.
Yeah.
I guess the point is to say that the question that you asked, the lovely comparison that you made, I do really appreciate. And I do think that there are ways that I say things that are by choice that aren't necessary to say in the ways that I do, other than that I'm like, well, this is how the song of this joke goes. So not only am I not offended by your comparing me to a masterful music creator, I think that your comparison was, I would say, genre-wise, right on.
Ah, perfect. On the same page. Love it. Speaking of genres, before we head out of here, you mentioned earlier, you know, you and Rini, you know, touring the road, going to shows, and you guys kind of like, you know, speaking of music, kind of sing along together, listen to podcasts. What's the playlist for listening to on the car ride to St. Louis, Missouri?
Wonderful. Wonderful to ask. Thank you so much. So I don't know what we will listen to, but I do know that here are some things that we have listened to. And so it might be these, and it might be things like these, but Rini has pulled up variously, sometimes an 80s, like best of the 80s playlist that we'll sing along to. Okay. Sometimes a best of the 90s playlist. You know, we were both certainly alive and cognizant and enjoying music in those decades. Maybe we'll even get into the 2000s. We also do like a lot of hip hop. And I guess I'll use these final moments to plug, in addition to my own work, some hip hop that I enjoy comes from my friend Zach Sherwin. Zach Sherwin is a masterful creator of music, rap, comedy, and lately a show called The Crossword Show that if you're in the Los Angeles area, you should go see it when he's doing it, coming up soon. And then hopefully it'll be able to be viewable other places when it goes on tour, when that is a thing that happens again. But so I recommend to everyone check out Zach Sherwin's YouTube videos, at least, if not on Spotify, wherever you want to take in audio, visual combinations. So I guess I'm saying on this road trip, I will listen to at least some of my friend Zach's music because I love it.
I love that. See, that's awesome. And now on my car ride home, I'm going to plug some Zach Sherwin in right now. I was about to say, I was like, what are some recommendations? But you already see, again, you casually answered the question that I was about to ask. We were like prepared / like not prepared, but it was great and I loved it. Let's talk about your show really quickly. This upcoming Sunday at Helium Comedy Club, St. Louis, Missouri, October 10th. I will be there, so everybody else should be there as well. Anything else that I'm leaving out about your show that I should know?
I think you've done it. 7 p.m. at Helium in St. Louis,
7 p.m.
Sunday on October 10th, and I'll have turned. I don't even know what my life is going to be like because I'm turning 43 on Thursday, and as such, I will be older and hopefully at least a few days wiser than I am now. So come see what the new me, which is also the old me. It's weird that the old me is younger than the new me. The new me is the oldest me that I've ever been. So come see the old me on the older me. Come see the oldest me possible on Sunday. Right now, who knows what I'm talking about? I'm just a young me right now.
Yes, we're going to be casually aging together in the Helium Comedy Club on Sunday, October 10th at 7 p.m. You brought up the time, and I should have brought that up too. You kind of remember probably from our last episode, now that we are casually done with our interview, great timing, so much great content. I'm so excited. What are you going to casually do now with the new you or the old you after our recording?
In one moment, I will do the same thing I do most Sunday afternoons, casually, Molly, is learn about Tibetan debate and Buddhist ontology with my Buddhist friend, Gus.
Oh, that is so cool. If you learn anything, let me know that I should know that would apply to my life. Because I definitely couldn't use some peace. So I really appreciate it. Everybody, make sure again, follow Myq at Myq Kaplan. Didn't want to spell it like plank, but I just wanted to make sure.
Yeah,
and
just take
Yeah, go ahead. What were you saying? Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, it's just Myq and then scramble all the letters of a plank, and then you'll know where to find him.
Exactly. And it's super easy. First name, last name. You can follow the Casually Molly podcast at the Casually Molly podcast. Very creative. Just remember Molly with an IE. We'll be sharing this interview all week. So very excited to see you on Sunday. And thank you again for joining the Casually Molly podcast. We'll just have you another time again.
Thank you. Same here. Let's, I'll be back for the Casually Molly, formerly Myq, future combo podcast.
Sounds good. Can't wait. Bye, everybody. Have a good one.